Peace, love, light, and healing family. Peace to the gods, peace to the earth. I want to welcome y'all to Yaki TV and welcome y'all to something new that we're doing. What we're doing is we're going over specific cases, and each case have different questions, a part of the case, and with the ailments that they're dealing with. So, for instance, this is case one, and in case one, there's multiple questions, a part of case one. Each question is going to be broken down into 14-minute increments, and we're going to talk about the question. We're going to talk about what exactly they're asking. If it's a certain type of ailment or disease, we're going to break the ailment and disease down. And then we're going to move into exactly what it is and how to reverse that ailment and disease. PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. To truly grasp the meaning of this so-called disease, because we don't believe in diseases, we believe in the body's capability of healing itself. And when the body goes through the systems or the symptoms of healing itself, then the allopathic community actually call it a disease and give it a name. So if you really want to talk about what polycystic ovarian syndrome is, you got to talk about the word. The first part of that word is poly. Poly means many. For instance, a man that's in a polygynous, relationship have multiple women. So we see that this means many. Then we got cis. Well, a cis is a glomulation or a coagulation of mass of dead cells. And inside of these cells, you have unwanted hormones that haven't been utilized by the body. You have unwanted minerals that haven't been utilized by the body. You also have cytotoxins. You have toxemia. You have metabolic cellular waste from cells that was not utilized and that have been localized to this cyst. And all these things and it borrows on a bloodstream, and blood start feeding in life and they grow. These are what you call cysts. There is no difference between a cyst. There's no difference between a tumor. There's no difference between an abscess, a lipoma, anything that is trying to excrete itself outside of the body. It forms pockets within the tissues, and then these tissues become bulging, and these bulgings of mass is what we call cysts, tumors, fibroids, and everything else. So if you look at the word polycystic ovarian syndrome, we see poly means many. We see cyst is nothing but a tumor. Ovarian, that's the location of the spot. And then we got syndrome, which means the compromising of the actual organ or localized tissues that we're talking about. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, why is these tissues becoming compromised? And then when you check the tissues and you open them up, you start seeing all of these different types of unutilized minerals, all these different types of unutilized and imbalanced hormones, broken down fecal matters that's coming from the cells. And you have to ask yourself what is going on with inside the body. So we're finna go on what's happening inside the body, and we're going to show you how to get rid of these things. Peace, God. Will you please talk about PCOS? I have not eaten meat in 24 years and been off seafood for probably about 2 years. I was diagnosed with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and even with my clean eating. I still have issues with losing weight, swollen ankles, and feet. That's a whole different topic that we're going to do. And it's still going to be part of case one, but it's going to be subject to diagnosis two, and facial and hair in regular cycles. Well, we know that the facial hair comes from the, production of the male hormone that we spoke about in the beginning of the video. And a part of that is testosterone, and testosterone is supposed to be inside of the female body. And the reason why it's supposed to be inside of the female body, because it helps with structure functioning of cells. It helps for repairing and maintaining the uterine wall and the fallopian tubes, the whole entire reproductive organ. But when you're producing too much testosterone due to the environment and outside sources, and testosterone outweighs estrogen and progesterone and pregnenolone, you will start getting a lot of them male features. And one of them male features is excessive hair growth. And that's where you start seeing women with beards and women with, bumps on their face, women with cysts all on their backs, lipomas on their backs, bad acne, and mustaches, and sometimes, even peach fudges. So that's what you're dealing with. If you listen to everything I've been telling you and you cleanse these things out of the body and you bring the body back into homeostasis, you will notice that the excessive hair growth will leave. As far as the irregular cycles are irregular because the corpus luteum that grows on the ovary time and time again, turning into these polycysts. Sometimes it's 3 that ends up, on the endometrium lining of the cervix. Sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7. So the bleeding will be different. If it's 1, the bleeding will be regular. If it's 2, the bleeding will speed up. If it's 6, the bleeding will be heavy. If it's 8 to 10, the bleeding will be monstrous. So, the irregular cycle and the irregular flow of your period have a lot to do with the cyst that is growing, or the corpus luteum that is growing on the ovary, on the fallopian tube, on the cervix lining, endometrium lining of the cervix. It could be either or. But if you change your diet to a livid, and if you change the alkaline acid chemistry, and you get rid of all the things that I told you to get rid of in your environment, out of your lifestyle, all these things will go away. So what we're looking at right here, we're actually looking at the reproductive part of a woman. We're looking at the uterus, we're looking at the cervix, we're looking at the fallopian tubes, and we're actually looking at the ovaries. And in order to truly understand polycystic ovarian syndrome, you have to start particularly paying attention to the ovaries right here and what they're doing. So we're going to dive deep into the reproductive part, or what we're going to call, the ankh is made after the woman's reproductive organ when you get into Kemetic science. The cross is made after the woman's reproductive organ when you get into Christianity. When you look at Aries and Aries rising, when you look at the rams and you just look at the goat head, all these things are a representation of the portal of life, which is the actual womb and reproductive organ part of a woman. So we have to make sure these things are in balance. We have to make sure that these things are really cleansed out. That way life and the functioning processes of life, which is what we're going to call cellular structure function, can work properly when it comes to bringing the man child or the woman child into this matrix. So to truly understand polycystic ovarian syndrome, we have to dive deep into the goddess's womb. If you're looking at the womb, we're just going to identify with certain pieces of it, and then we're going to get into it. What we're looking at here is we're looking at the cervix. We're looking at the cervix. These little linings inside of the cervix is called the endometrium. Cells of the lining of the cervix. You have the ovaries, which is coming from the reproductive organ. You have the fingers, or what I call the lotus flower, that is, coming from the actual fallopian tubes. Every month, the woman actually goes through an ovulation period. And this ovulation period is for her to truly conceive if ejaculated properly. And of course, the man's sperm is lively. The man's sperm is a good balance of alkaline and alkaline and acids. And, and that sperm or that seminal fluid really take hold inside of the reproductive system and travel its way up into the fallopian tubes and from the ovaries and really meet that egg. Well, inside of these ovaries, the woman have her eggs, and you can see these processes going on right here. Each month, when the woman actually goes through her actual ovulation period, her ovaries produce something called the corpus luteum. All right, it's called the corpus luteum. And what the corpus luteum is a cyst that grows on the ovary each entire month. I know that y'all think that fibroids is just, a freak of nature, like it just came out of nowhere, or, a polyovarian cyst came out of nowhere, and cyst is all a bad thing. But what if I told you that each month the actual ovaries produce their own cyst every month, and this cyst actually becomes the baby? But if it doesn't become the baby, then what happens is progesterone is produced inside of the system, and what happens is that cyst breaks off, and then then the fallopian tubes suck that cyst up, and it goes through the fallopian tubes into the cervix, and then it sticks itself to the endometrium lining of the cervix, and then the endometrium starts shedding this cyst, and this cyst start looking like droplets of blood coming out each month, and that is your period. The period is nothing but you shedding that corpus luteum cyst that grows on the ovary every month. Now, the question you're going to have to ask yourself is this: why is that cyst not being shedded through the uterus properly? Why is that cyst not coming out through the cervix lining and literally coming out from the vagina canal properly, causing your menstrual cycle? Well, it's an imbalance of chemistry going on. And that imbalance of chemistry is testosterone. And testosterone comes from what they call a male hormone. We can't really call it a male hormone, but when you get into the allopathic community, they're a patriarchal society, so everything is about the man. Everything. They even say the Holy Spirit is a man when you get into Christianity. You know, man this, man that. The man was the first person to ever hear on creation. The man have all the authority. It's very, very, very alpha male and very masculine and predominant. And they don't know nothing about, the harmonious balance to things. They don't know anything about ma'at. And that's the reason why all these diseases is occurring. And that's the reason why the woman is being attacked so much when it comes to sickness, when it comes to ailments, and when it comes to diseases. Androgen hormones is what they call the male hormone. The reason why I don't call it a male hormone is because it's naturally produced by women too. But if that masculine hormone, which holds testosterone in it, is produced too much, then it brings an imbalance to the female reproductive organs. Testosterone is acidic in nature. You see that estrogen is acidic in nature, but when they work together, this is actually what maintains the maintenance and the repairing to the uterine wall. This is what maintains the maintenance and the repairing to the ovaries, to the fallopian tubes, to the whole entire reproductive system. In fact, estrogen, or what we call estrogen, is in control of growing the woman's body, maturing her body, giving her breasts, giving her hips, opening up her vagina canal, getting her ready for her menstruate cycle for she can give birth. So we can't knock estrogen or estrogen. We can't knock testosterone because testosterone helps maintain and repair. But when they're out of balance and they're not in their harmonious frequencies, they cause disruptions and they start to destroy and break down tissue and cell structure functioning. So each month, the woman actually goes through her ovulation period. If she does not conceive if she does not get pregnant, what happened is that actual cyst that forms, called the corpus luteus, if it's supposed to break off due to progesterone. Well, if progesterone is not there to break it off because you have high levels of testosterone in the system, or you have very high levels of estrogen in the system, then it will stay there and progesterone will not come and do its job, which is breaking it off, sucking it through the fallopian tubes, bringing it to the cervix, sticking it to the endometrium lining of the cervix, and then shedding and going through the vagina canal, which is becoming your menstruate or your period. So what happens is estrogen is there, which is very hot and acidic. Testosterone is there, which is very hot and acidic, and it will actually weld itself to the ovaries. Now, since it's welding itself to the ovaries, progesterone can't do its job because it's not producing enough within inside of the system, because something is off with the pituitary gland, which is we're going to talk about later in this video. So what happens is it builds up and it accumulates and it agglomerates, and then more cells come and more cells come. So then you're going to see cyst after cyst after cyst after cyst start popping up in the ovaries that's attached to the actual fallopian tubes, and then boom, this is where you actually get the calcification and the crystallizations of uric acid, of testosterone, of estrogen, of all these dead cell tissues that was supposed to be shedded out through the vagina canal and not. Now all these things is accumulated and coagulated on the ovaries, causing you all types of problems, hair loss, all types of low abdominal pain, causing fibroids, causing reproductive issues. And then they're going to offer you hysterectomies, vasectomies, trying to take out your birthing canal or anything to do with bringing young gods and young goddesses into this realm. So whenever you're dealing with the reproductive part of a male or a female, you have to get into the particulars. And the particulars we're talking about is the glandular highway, or what they call the endocrine system. And a part of this endocrine system, there's two main glands that's associated with the reproductive system of the woman. The first gland is called the hypothalamus gland. The second gland is called the pituitary gland. We're going to focus on the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus gland when we're talking about the reproductive part, especially when you're talking about converting cholesterol into progesterone and converting cholesterol into pregnenolone, when converting cholesterol into testosterone, estrogen, estrogen, all these different endogen types of chemical hormones to truly bring the body into a balance of Ma'at, or what the Bible will call a just judgments. Now, when you truly start digging deep within to the brain, or what they call the central nervous system, I'm gonna call this the third brain. I believe that the first brain is the gut, the second brain is the cardiovascular system, or what we call the heart, and the third brain is actually what they call the central nervous system. And this is this, substance that floats around in the cranium. So when you dive deep into here and you start breaking these things apart, we're going to show you the glands that I'm talking about that's in control of the actual reproductive system of a male and female. This particular case, we're talking about a female. This is the pods. Now, when you look at the pods and you start getting into the pods, the front of the pods, you will see what you will really call the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland looks like two testicles, which is ironic because the pituitary gland is actually over the reproductive part of a male and female. And then you really get into the pituitary gland and they look like two testicles. Behind it, you're going to see what they call the pineal gland, the pineal gland, or what they call the third eye. So we're going to talk about the pituitary gland. Once you start looking upwards on the pituitary gland, this is called the hypothalamus gland. The hypothalamus gland is in control of monitoring and releasing. Let me say that again. The hypothalamus gland, which is right above the pituitary gland, is in control of monitoring and releasing all the hormones that the pituitary gland produce for the reproductive system to work properly and efficiently. So what the hypothalamus gland does is it monitors and it sucks and bring in all of the different, hormones that the pituitary gland actually produces. So the pituitary gland produces a lot of hormones. One of the hormones it produces is somatostatin, which is a growth hormone that is actually inside the pancreas. And this is associated with diabetes, but this is not a diabetes video, so we'll talk about that in a diabetes video. Another thing is ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormone that these things release, and it's in control of all of the adrenogen, or the adrenals that's connected to the adrenal glands that sits on top of the kidneys. Another thing is FAH hormone, which stands for follicle stimulating hormone. And notice, this follicle stimulating hormone is actually what turns the actual corpus luteum into a cyst each month that sits on top of the ovaries of a woman. Another one is luteinizing hormone, and the luteinizing hormone stands for corpus luteum. So we got the FHA, which is the follicle stimulating hormone that actually stimulates the corpus luteum. Then we have the LH, which is the luteinizing hormone, and this is what produces the actual cyst on the ovary each month during the ovulation period of a woman. Another hormone is the GH hormone, and this just stands for simply growth hormone. And this hormone is associated a lot with estrogen and estrogen, because I tell y'all a lot that estrogen and estrogen is a cellular proliferator, meaning it grows things, it makes things grow big. The same thing when you get into arginine, which is amino acid. It promotes the growth of things, the maturing of things. And then another one is prolactin and thyroid stimulating hormone. All these hormones are produced by the pituitary gland, and the pituitary gland hormones convert cholesterol into these hormones. So if you ever wonder where your reproductive sexual hormones come from, like testosterone, pregnenolone, progesterone, estrogen, follicle stimulating hormones, luteinizing, any of these different type of hormones are all converted by cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, into reproductive sexual hormones by the pituitary gland. And then the hypothalamus gland actually monitor these hormones that was produced by the pituitary gland, and they bring these hormones down into the other endocrine systems or endocrine glands inside of the body to be utilized for structure functioning. Now, the reason the issue for this problem is the environment and where we putting our mindset at, where we putting our spiritual body at, and where we putting our physical body at in the environment. Women and men are drinking too much bottled water. These bottled waters come with high levels of estrogen in it. We eating all these different soy-based products, and all this soy is nothing. These soybean-based products is high levels of estrogen in it. Estrogen is acidic, by the way. It's on the potential hydrogen scale at a 4.5, which is very acidic. Not only that, it's coming from our breads, it's coming from our wheats, because synthetic estrogen act as a additive and a preservative for most of the foods that we're eating. The thing is, when you start taking in synthetic chemistry and synthetic hormone that is not natural to the body, the way Yahweh produces the body to be, the glandular highway will stop working because it's getting it from another source. So if you're taking in high levels of estrogen from breads and from your carbons and your glutens and from your bottled waters and all these different other sources, the things that we're not supposed to be putting in our body anyway, what happens is the glandular highway go to sleep. So now the pituitary gland don't want to produce as much prolactin as it used to, follicle stimulating hormone as it used to, thyroid stimulating hormone as it used to, and now you have an imbalance of hormonal chemistry. So you have the pituitary gland, and this is the pituitary gland. This is what the pituitary gland actually look like. Above it will be the hypothalamus campus. Now, the hypothalamus gland. The pituitary gland starts producing the lutein enzyme, right? Remember what produces on the ovary. Let me draw that real fast. Let me draw that for y'all. Get his fingers. Bring it back in. This is the birthing canal. Going back into the cervix, going back into the fallopian tubes. And then you remember you have the actual ovaries coming out of that all the time right here. And then these are your ovaries. So the pituitary gland is going through its everyday thing, producing all of its different hormones. We're going to focus on the follicle stimulating hormones and the lutein enzymes, because this is actually what creates the hormones that's going to create the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum is literally a cyst that grows every month right here. This is the cyst. This cyst is supposed to become the embryo if the ejaculation go right, the sperm go right, and all the different hormones that's produced by the pituitary gland go right. Right now, once the pituitary gland produces all these hormones during your ovulation period, what happens is the hypothalamus gland starts monitoring these hormones and sending them throughout the body by way of the bloodstream to reach where it needs to go. The first place it's going to go, or the last place, should I say, it's going to go, is to the reproductive system. So say if it's producing estrogen and estrogen, pregnenolone, testosterone, all these different things, and converting LDL cholesterol to these different reproductive hormones, and then you're taking outside sources in. Like, for instance, we're going to say bottled water. And then you're getting synthetic estrogen. So now synthetic estrogen is coming in here. Remember, it's already producing its natural estrogen, its natural, chemistry that it needs to actually structure, function the reproductive organs. And then you want to do bread, which is very bad for you, by the way, which is more estrogen. Because we know that estrogen and estrogen act as an additive and a preservative to breads and to all these other different unwanted foods and chemistries to actually preserve it, right? These are synthetic hormones that the body doesn't need. Now, since the body was producing the natural one, I'm going to put N for natural, now you have the unnatural one. They start mixing chemistry. What happens is you start messing up the chemistry and the structure function of the pituitary gland. So the pituitary gland says, you know what? I don't need to produce the natural anymore. I'm just going to use the unnatural. Now the hypothalamus gland is taking these unnatural hormones and then is monitoring them and sending these unnatural hormones down to the reproductive organ. So the unnatural hormones go to the reproductive organ, and it still produces what you will call the corpus luteum. Because remember, we're dealing with a follicle stimulating hormone and a lutein stimulating hormone, which produces this cyst every month on the ovary. This is supposed to become the embryo, right? So now you threw off progesterone because you have too many high levels of estrogen from all these different unwanted food sources that's not meant for you. So progesterone is supposed to come in and actually break this off. Then what happens is this corpus luteum is supposed to go through the fallopian tubes. This is what it's supposed to do, and travel through this layer called the cervix, and it's supposed to end up at the endometrium skin layer of the cervix. And then what happens is this get breaking apart, and then you shed it out, and then you start dripping, and it's what you call the men's cycle. Well, if progesterone is not doing its job because it's not being produced, right, because your cholesterol is high and can't convert into progesterone, or you have too many unnatural synthetic estrogen coming in by way of soy-based products, soybeans, and, you know, all these different soda pops and different breads and gluten and carbonic acid, uric acid from meats, and et cetera, because when you're eating meat, you're eating all of they different sexual hormones as well. Now progesterone is low and it's not doing its job, so progesterone is not going to be able to break off this cyst. So now you still have the estrogen coming in, so more corpus luteums is popping up, more of them. And next thing you know, you have all these different cysts that's on top of the ovaries, and that's how it happened. Now, how do you undo this problem? How you undo this problem is simply by start taking out things. Start taking out the bottled waters. Start taking out the bread. Start taking out all the acids that you're getting. Start taking out the unwanted estrogen, all the synthetic things. And now the pituitary gland is back in its righteous state. It's back producing nothing but natural hormones. Now the hypothalamus gland, which is on top of the pituitary gland, can utilize and monitor them right and send them down to the reproductive system right. So now it's going naturally. So now when that cyst pop up and ejaculation come in, now this cyst can actually become an embryo, and this cyst can break off and get sucked up by the fingers of the fallopian tube, right? And go through and actually impregnate. You see that? Or if a pregnation don't happen, it can go through, and instead of impregnating, it'll get to the endometrial lining of the cervix, and it will shed off properly, and you won't have any more cysts on the ovaries. So what we suggest you do is look at things that are high in synthetic estrogen or high in estrogen and stop eating it at all. We recommend you go on an all-fruit diet if you do have these things to hydrate the body and start breaking these things up. We also recommend that you get our geogenetic therapeutic package level 3. Within inside of this geogenetic therapeutic package level 3 is our essential or glandular kit, where we'll clean out these glands and get all the synthetic hormones that's associated with these glands out of the body. We will alkaline the blood, we will alkaline the lymphatic system, we will alkaline the cells, and we will push out all the cytotoxins and toxicity that's associated with this particular so-called disease, and we will rejuvenate and revitalize the whole system, and you do not have to worry about this no more. So what I recommend you do is stop eating estrogen. Make sure that you're not eating foods that's out of a hormonal balance frequency when it comes to your biospirit. Make sure that you're, not eating anything that got preservatives and additives to it. If you got to preserve it and put additives in it, meaning that it's dead and they're trying their hardest to keep these things alive or to reserve the taste in them, which means that it's bad chemistry for the body. The best thing you can do is go on an all raw diet. And this is fruits and vegetables, not cooked, and take the geogenetic therapeutic herbal package off of my website, www.yakiawaken.com, and we can get rid of this whole entire process and disease by alkalining the body and bringing the body into a hormonal balance and state. So I just wanted to recap on polycystic ovarian cyst syndrome. In order to undo these things, you will have to bring your body back into a state of alkalinity. There's a lot of people that never even been in that state of alkalinity because their mothers was acidic, their fathers was acidic when they procreated the child, and then the child became a full-grown human being, and they never even got to taste that base side of chemistry. Whenever you're dealing with chemistry, you're always dealing with two sides of chemistry, and you're either dealing with the alkaline side, or what they call the base sides, or you're dealing with the acidic, corrosive, gnarly side of chemistry, what we call acid. Stay off of uric acid. Uric acid is crystallized uric acid at that, because mucus is involved. And this comes from eating of animal flesh and animal flesh products. Stay off of lactic acid, which is the milk and the lymphatic substance that come from these animals like ice cream and milk and lactose and all this other stuff. Stay off of phytic acid, which is plant ovaries, plant testicles, and plant embryos, or what they're going to call beans. Stay off of that. Stay off of certain nuts and seeds. These things is what's bringing that imbalanced chemistry into your bodies. Make sure that you're not drinking bottled water. If you are drinking water, make sure that water is H3O2 and not H2O. H3O2 is the natural occurring liquid water, structure water that comes from your fruits. If you can't do that and afford that and you still want to drink H2O, make sure that it's spring water and it comes from wells and things like that, which I don't recommend. But if you want to do that, make sure it's not in plastic bottles where it's leaching arsenic acid and have all these different types of synthetic hormones in them that's going to throw off your harmonious balance and frequency of the body. You know, don't be smoking, stop drinking. Alcoholism got to go out the door. Anything that is harming the body and the structure functioning of your cells is going to add to this problem. The way to reverse this problem is by cutting all these things out of the lifestyle and getting on to the herbs, the geogenetic therapeutic herbal package that me and my team provides you. This will cleanse the glandular highway. This will bring the glandular highway back into balance. This will cleanse each individual cell of the body. This will bring hydration to the body by way of the fruit diet that we'll put you on. And you will see that when you tap into the alkaline electrical side of chemistry, the alkaline, the electrical side of nature, that you no longer have to deal with the acidic, gnarly, acidic pain that's associated with eating things that's not a part of your geographical, genetical diet.